listening to Sports on Tap, part of the NEO Sports Insiders Network. Here are your hosts, Rob Troutman, Josh Jeffy, Ed Dick, and Sean Duffy.
And welcome to Sports on Tap. We're live from Z's Cream and Bean in Hinckley, Ohio. I'm Rob Troutman. We have Josh Jeffy, Ed Dick, and we have a special guest coming up, Ed, that three-time state champion now for high school hockey. Consecutive, three-time. It's three.
Oh, they didn't update that with state website. Wow, look at you doing your research.
And I do listen.
Hey.
Imagine that, right? So welcome, everybody, to Sports on Tap. Again, we're live from Z's Cream and Bean. We're going to talk a little St. Ignatius hockey. He's the assistant coach for the St. Ignatius Wildcats hockey team. Bryan Schoenholz is here. And thanks for joining us, Coach, for coming up tonight.
Hey, thanks for having me.
I mean, what a year. Actually, 3 years now. I mean, that's consecutively. They've won the state hockey championship in high school hockey here in Northeast Ohio. And, again, unbelievable job this year. Talk a little bit about, how the season started and where you guys kind of went to throughout the season.
Yeah, so this was a really interesting year. We had to pretty much do a little bit of a road show. As you said, we went back-to-back coming into the year. We have a really talented younger group, and we wanted to get them some exposure. So we started basically going on the road, trying to get some looks for scouts, getting some good competition. There was actually only 3 weekends we were in town all year. And one of those weekends we had a Canadian team come up and play us, the Hill Academy. So Coach O'Rourke and Coach Grams did a really good job of putting together the toughest schedule that I've ever played or coached against or seen in high school hockey for that matter. So we had top teams from Michigan, top teams from D.C., top teams. I think they said something that we played 5 state champion teams, the D1 and D2 out of Michigan, the D.C., the Colorado state champs. We played a lot of really, really good teams, and our boys got tested every weekend. It was a little tough being on the road, but we played that good competition. We rolled some momentum right into the tournament, and got a couple lucky breaks and another ring, and that's all you can ask for.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's 5 state titles since 2010. I mean,
that's correct.
How does that? How have you guys been able to maintain that level of excellence and that level of success since 2010 all the way up to this point? I mean, you've been there for most of it, if not all of it. I mean, from your perspective, starting in 10 and rolling up to this year, what's been the constant drive?
So it's all about getting the right players in your organization, and Pat O'Rourke he's the guy with the vision, the mastermind. Some people call it recruiting. He's the admissions director, so he's promoting the school, and he's targeting a certain kid to come to Ignatius. He's targeting a certain type of hockey player that he wants in his program, and he goes out and he promotes the school, and he gets the right kids to put in his program. And to kind of toot my own horn a little bit, because I'm part of the staff, he gets the right people on the staff around him. He's got 4 teams. He's got to coach and staff all those teams. So he's just putting the right people around him. And in 2010, when that all started, you could see how, we had 2 teams. He had a good core of assistant coaches and coaching staff, and you saw the type of players he was bringing in, and he kind of changed, going from, the very talented, uber talented, everybody wants this kid, to, hey, this is the kid that's a good fit for Ignatius. Not only the hockey program, but the school. So he built this camaraderie. He basically built a family, right? And it started in 2010, and those kids were the baseline. And then it just grew from there. With success, you get a little bit of publicity, and now more kids want to come. So the recruiting probably became a little bit easier. So you could get to pick a little bit more from the kids that he wanted. But it all starts with getting the right kids in, and then we were able to build a brand of hockey around the kids. And from there, it's just one year after another, never being complacent with where you're at. It's trying to get to the next level. So, we won in 2010. We had another good group of kids. We tried to push our schedule a little bit harder to get a little bit better. And then we keep trying to push the schedule, trying to get better kids, trying to do little things in practices, like how can we make our drills better. How can we do whatever we got to do to improve our program? And you keep improving a little bit by the way, and next thing you know, you're where you want to go.
Yeah, and you can't argue with the results. I mean, it's insane. I haven't seen even if you look back through the history, you don't see a run as successful as what you guys have been able to put together. So I mean, congratulations to you and your coaches, and most importantly the players for being able to go on this run. Speaking of some of the players, let's talk about some of your players. I mean, you have a great. You mentioned earlier, before we got in the air, about a great sophomore class. We'll get to them, of course, certainly. But how about some of the seniors that you're going to be seeing leaving the program? So
we'll be really, really sad to see our 4 seniors go, but we only do have 4, so that's a good thing. Two of the guys are heart and soul, our captains, Michael McCaffrey and Bane Kurtz. They both emotional leaders and energy leaders, and they basically put the team on their shoulders at some points during the season. An interesting story about Michael is when we had the Hill Academy in, a couple weeks left of the season, he broke a bone in his ankle, and we all thought his season was over, and we were trying to figure out how to get by without him. And we did. We finished the season, and he rehabbed and got surgery and whatnot, and he came back for the Eds game. So the kid fought a broken bone in his ankle to come back and play, and I mean, the kid's just tough as nails. So that kind of leadership, all the kids feed on that. And then our other 2 seniors, Santino Pigatella and Andrew Dank, good solid defensemen. When you have really talented young people, they always need somebody to look up to. They need to figure out how much effort they need to give, why they're doing what they're doing. Everybody plays hockey, and we all know how to shoot, skate, and this and that. But when your heart's in it, that's when you really go to the next level. And our seniors were able to show them how to put their heart in the game, and that was invaluable through the season. So we'll really miss our captains, but thankfully we only lose 4 guys, so we're very young. We got a lot of talent coming back.
Yeah, talk about some of the the juniors that you have on the team that need to make that step to being the team leaders and showing the younger guys, because like you said, you have 4 teams and you got a lot of young hockey players. So talk about the guys that are coming up and you expect to go into that leadership role starting next year.
Yeah, so actually our goaltender who couldn't make it today, I really wanted him to talk to you guys. He's one of our captains. He's a junior. He'll come back next year. He's a pretty vocal guy, really understands the game. He can kind of control the ice. Ice the puck when he needs. When we need him to freeze the puck, plays the puck. He's orchestrating the defense. Very vocal goalie, which is really important to have. We've got a quarterback back there, and that's really important. So he'll be one of our captains next year. Another captain's Connor McGowan. He was an alternate captain this year. Another guy who's just like a super kid. Always makes the right play. Very thoughtful, very a student of the game, and he could be one of those vocal leaders too that the kids can feed on. You watch him put his heart into the game. You watch with what he does. He can lead by example and vocally. So we got 2 really strong leaders as juniors, and then I'll go into the sophomore class a little bit because one of our other captains, an alternate captain that we've named for last year or for next year, is Michael Boehm, a sophomore, and he's probably the smartest hockey mind I've ever coached, and he's, I've had him for 2 years. He made the team as a freshman. He was on the ice his freshman year, and then he was a big contributor this last year as a sophomore. But he's just a super athlete, super good kid, and he just understands things. We joke around. We call him Coach Michael in the locker room. Every time we're drawing stuff up, I'll just chuck a marker at him and be like, Coach Mike, just finish it up for me. And he knows the X's and the O's. He's got body position like you wouldn't believe. He's a super athlete and a super kid. He's a very
impressive,
guy.
Especially from just a sophomore.
Oh yeah, he's a special kid for sure.
I think a lot of the kids, if they're younger, they have to grow up pretty quick, especially now with being a younger team. Talk a little bit about how it helped. You said you traveled a lot to Canada, Michigan, Pennsylvania. Talk about how it helped the young kids maybe come together a little bit with the leaders of the seniors, going far away from home. I think it kind of helps a little bit, and it's probably fun for the kids a little bit.
Yeah, so, you always bond on these trips. That is for sure. You're in the bus. Everybody's on top of each other in the bus. You get team dinners. You're in the hotel room. there's a really interesting story we had the first time we went to Grand Rapids, which is a pretty long trip. It was fairly, I would say, pretty early in the season, early to mid-season, and the seniors, the captains, came up to me and Coach O'Rourke, and they had a little bit of a conundrum. They said, Coach, these sophomores, they're really good, but they're not listening. They're not getting it. And we had to talk about what it takes for them to be a leader, how to get these kids to lead us. And Bain, one of the captains, he goes, and oddly enough, his younger brother is a sophomore on the team. So we have brothers, Bain Kurtz and Cam Kurtz. So Bain made a comment. These kids all know me. They've been with my little brother. They're all this clan, this big clan. These 10 sophomores, and he goes, when I was a sophomore, when Aiden Spellacy said something, you did it, or you were gonna get, like you feared the captain. He goes, these kids don't fear me. I go, well, you don't need to be feared. You just need them to follow you. And we had to talk about some things they could do, and just leading by example. And sometimes the coach has to poke the bear a little bit, and tell the sophomores, be like, hey, these 4 seniors have run through a wall for me. They're gonna run through a wall for you, and if you let them lead you, good things are going to happen. And it was that trip at Grand Rapids that it all started to come together. But, if we're not on the road, the seniors make the freshmen and the sophomores do the bus things, right? And everybody complains about it. And those are the little things that present themselves to tell you how close you are as a team. And if we're not on the road, maybe that doesn't happen. Maybe we don't get that good leadership out of those 4. Maybe the sophomores don't buy in as quickly as at that point. Maybe it takes longer. Maybe it never happens, and maybe we never win states if it doesn't. So,
well, the seniors have to be an extension of you guys to a certain extent. Yeah. It's like you can't have. I mean, after a while, you hear the same coaches, you hear the voices, time and day in and day out, and you need the seniors to say the same thing that you're saying.
Absolutely.
But also to a point where it's maybe more relatable to them. I mean, unfortunately, we're getting to the point now we're not as relatable to them anymore.
Exactly. Yep.
So we need the seniors are extremely important in getting the point across.
Not only do they got to say what you're saying, they got to believe it, because as a coach, you believe what you say, and when a senior or a captain buys into that, everybody else sees it a little bit different. It's like one of those things where even if one of the senior captains said something and the other one, they have to be a unified front. So the captains and the coaches have to be a unified front. All the coaches obviously have to be a unified front. If there's any chink in that armor, the leadership breaks down. So everybody's got to be on the same page. And we've been lucky enough to kind of have a really good nucleus of not only coaches, but the coaches and the captains. We have captains meetings after every team dinner. We meet with the captains. We say, what do you like? What do you don't like? We try to make it their team. It's with that teach a man to fish for a lifetime thing. If I'm just barking out orders, or if we just run practices, then they get something out of it, but not enough.
Yeah.
Once they take ownership of things, then it's a different ball game.
Yeah, I'm sure they'd get bored with you barking orders all the time too. But
like
you said, it's really tough to get everybody on the same page. But I think you guys broke it down nicely with the coaches and the seniors. And you saw it throughout this year. I mean, you guys consistently were good all year, probably got better and better all the way into the playoffs. And, I mean, you look at through the first 2 rounds in the playoffs, you guys were on a 22-2 run there at one point. I mean, that's pretty impressive. Offensively, obviously, you're scoring goals, but the goaltending was sensational, too, in the playoffs.
Oh, yeah, Benny's something else.
I mean, it's fun to watch. I think your closest game up to one point was Rocky River at 3-1, which was probably it probably helped you to have a little bit of a close game, because do those 9-2 games, do those help your guys out, or do they kind of at some point, I hate to say, get bored?
Well,
but you have such a big lead, I guess your attention to detail might not be as crisp.
Exactly. So as a coach, I really hate those games, and that's the reason we try to find good competition over the course of the year. All that happens in a 9-2 game is bad habits can form, right? So in a game, not to discount another team, but once you're up by 5 goals and there's a big talent gap like that, the game's pretty much over, right? So you want to stay classy, but you don't want to do the game wrong. You don't want to do the other team wrong.
Yeah.
You're just thinking about all the wrong things. Nobody's thinking about hockey. Everybody's thinking about how things are perceived.
Yeah.
And at that point, it's all that can happen is you rub somebody the wrong way, you get a couple bad habits. There's really no good comes from the winning team. No good comes to the losing team.
Yeah.
So really don't like those first couple rounds of the playoffs, but you got to do it. That's the format we're in. It's what the state does. So we just do the best we can.
And you guys had a good. I mean, starting with that game against Rocky River, they are the Barron Cup 1 champions from the from the league that we have a lot of visibility with.
Yeah.
And you were able to carry that momentum into the St. Ed's game. So starting from Rocky River, moving forward, how did the rest of the season go from that point on? Obviously, culminating in your state championship.
Yeah. So the Rocky River game was a tight game. They have some really really good players. They're a talented team. It was. Probably the first time, we played Eds, and we played the Padua tournament in the season, but that was very early in the season. So, again, we were on that road show. We hadn't faced a good Ohio team until Rocky River, basically. And there was a lot of pressure because, obviously, we were the favorite to win. We wanted to go out there and play a certain type of hockey. And, in those playoff games, when it's one and done, anything can happen. Guys gripping their stick a little bit tighter. The crowd gets into it. That's why the NCAA March Madness, that's why that's so great. This one-and-done thing does really crazy things to athletes and teams in general. So a game like Rocky River where you got a talented team that has the potential to beat you, but you're the favorite to win, you really got to overcome a lot of that underdog magic that could happen, and that's in the back of all of our kids' minds. But they weathered the storm. We played a good game. They had some key guys that we were able to kind of shut down. And if we couldn't do that, they had talented enough players that they could have got us off the ice, and it could have been a pretty ugly out for us.
And a tough game there, and then you turn around to your rival. I mean, it doesn't get much bigger than Eds and Ignatius as far as really any sport in the area from a competition standpoint.
Yep.
So you see them once earlier in the year. Going into that game, I mean, it's really nothing more needs to be said about Ignatius and Eds.
Right. So going into the district game, I watched film. We tried to break them down. We scouted them, but all that is just prep work to make us coaches feel good, like we've done our job. Because once that puck drops, it's just a different animal. I don't know if you guys caught any of the game or got any of the recap, but we got dominated the first 3 minutes of that game. We came out, and we always tell the kids that they always come out flying. They're always pumped up. They always come out with a lot of energy, and we knew that. And we try to tell the kids that we wanted to be more poised. We wanted to be able to control the game and to just weather the first 5 minutes. And that turned into, I don't want to say we played passive, but boy, Eds, they pumped us a little bit in those first 3 minutes. It got real hairy. And then once we, got a flow of the game going and we were able to start, breaking the puck out a little bit better, forechecking a little bit better, putting some pressure on them. And then once we got pressure on them and it turned into just a normal game, we could try to normalize the game a little bit. We felt like we were able to control the game a little bit more. But yeah, if Eds comes out and they pop one, they could have popped 3 early in those first 3 minutes, and it's really hard to come back from 1 or 2. So you never know what's going to happen in those games. You just kind of weather the storm, ride the highs, survive the lows.
I'm sure those games also help your team, though, a little bit, not to completely sail through it, all the way into the championship. It shows a little adversity for a team, especially when you have the seniors and, some of the young guys are probably going to look to them maybe a little more in those situations to come out and fire a little bit. Well,
for sure, if you look at the stat sheet, our seniors, particularly Bain Kurtz and Michael McCaffrey, carried us. Like I said, they put everybody on their shoulders. We talked about Michael having the broken ankle. He came back. He got a point in every game he played in. We almost had no business playing him because the guy could barely walk. He goes on the ice. He's got assists, goals. He was on the score sheet every game, which is just phenomenal. Yeah. Even if he was 100%, that's phenomenal. Bain Kurtz, they have him on the books for a 4-goal game in the state semis, which is a state record. So he really carried us. But going back to how the younger guys act or respond to that game, these kids, the sophomores in particular, if you haven't experienced that one and done atmosphere and playing it not only one and done but against your rivals, you really don't understand the urgency and how everything's very, very important. And I think they got a taste of that in River. I think if River was a blowout, it might have been bad for us. It might have been bad if we would have blown out River. They wouldn't have got that sense of urgency, that sense of, oh crap, if we lose this next game, these seniors never play again. Because that's at that point you're playing for their season. So we got 10 sophomores and a handful of juniors playing for 4 guys' season. At that point, everybody comes together, they look at each other, and they go, we can't let these guys go home like that. And those are the moments that usually carry you in those pressure situations when you got your rival in a district final.
Oh, man, I can only imagine.
So, Coach, going into, like, next season, I mean, you guys have had well-documented success the past, so many years. How do you keep your teams motivated to strive for that greatness? Is it something where – because you don't want to get to a point where, we're going to get there, we're expected to be there, that's how it is, or do you kind of coax them into saying, don't be the team not to win it? Like, how does it – how do you maintain that level, that high level of success and want and need to win?
So it's never coaching them to not be a team or to not to do something. It's always coaching them to achieve to the next level. Right. So, and that goes back to how we schedule ourselves. We're out on the road. Funny story. We went to Grand Rapids one weekend and we took it on the chin against Fox Motors. And I called my wife. I said, Megan, well, that's the worst loss that I've ever taken as a high school coach. And then the week after, we went up to Michigan and we played Detroit Central Catholic, and they pumped us, and they were even better. And I called her up again. That's the worst one. And then we went to Toronto. We played UCC, and that was another one. And, and she's like, seriously, 3 times? And they're like, which one is? I'm like, no, they all were that good and that much better. And once you see those teams play and the things that they do, especially Upper Canadian College, that team, they did some things with the puck that it was like mind-blowing. And so, we watched them play, and regardless of who our opponent is, we could teach our kids, this is where we want to be, right? Regardless of whatever happens in the state of Ohio. And Toledo St. Francis is a good team. They do things like that too. So there's always going to be competition in Ohio. When we go back to the Final Four, teams like US, teams like Eds, teams like Toledo St. Francis, they are upper echelon teams. You could get on the My Hockey rankings, and they do a pretty good job of comparing teams. And there is good competition. So I don't think we have to worry about outgrowing competition by any stretch. What we do is we evaluate where we want to go as a program, and we watch 3 teams beat us down pretty good. And now we have a vision of, okay, we've had some success doing it this way. Now how can we get our kids to the next level?
Mm-hmm. Good.
Well, how about let's go to the championship game against Toledo St. Francis. I mean, a pretty even contest. I mean, 2 evenly matched teams. I mean, you talk about 2 overtimes. Mm-hmm. It benefited you guys. But talk a little bit about that game and the atmosphere. We were talking a little bit before the show today about the atmosphere, going down to Columbus. Talk about that a little bit.
Right. So it's always cool in the state championship weekend, you get to go to Nationwide. Actually, our first day there, they had the Michigan-Ohio State game that night, so we got to hang out with some the Ohio State players swung by. Cool. Our goalie knows one of their goalies, so they were chit-chatting. That was really cool.
Wow.
So, you get that atmosphere of it's a little bit bigger than high school hockey, which is always cool. And then in the first draw, we had a Columbus team, and they traveled. Well, they didn't have to travel at all, but they had nearly 2,000 kids in their student section. I mean, one of the best crowds that I've ever seen at Nationwide for a high school hockey game, and it's just really fun. It's exciting. The game has a way of feeling a little bit slower because the atmosphere feels surreal, but actually the crowd might have helped us because, they got everybody's juices flowing a little bit. So Nationwide's a really, really cool venue to play. But getting back to St. Francis, I don't know if you guys caught the back and forth on us. So we've played them 3 straight times in the Final Four, and every time it's been a blowout, 5-1. And usually in the season they blow us out 5-1 or 6-1 or something. And it's very back and forth with them. They're a high flying team. They score a lot of goals. Very talented. They got a lot of kids that could put the puck in the net. So our games, if you look back in the last 3 years, there probably hasn't been a game that's been closer than 3 or 4 goals against them. It's back and forth, but it's always really tilted. So this was the first game that we played against Toledo St. Francis in many years that was really back and forth. You look at the scoreboard, everything was a lead change. And we scored, they scored twice, and we scored twice. It just went back and forth the whole time, which was a little bit uncharacteristic of our little rivalry, but it was cool. It was really cool.
I mean, to go into 2 overtimes, and you talk about the overtime periods, you want to talk about more pressure. You lose that one game in the tournament, you're out. But in this, it ends the season with 1 goal. I mean, talk about the overtime period where the guys pressure. I mean, they didn't seem to mind the pressure in this situation. But, I mean, talk about the overtime period a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, golden goal, especially when the championship's on the line. Everybody wants to get that goal, you know. Fortunately for us, we have a lot of guys that wanted the puck on your stick because that's a tough position to put, you know, a high school kid in when you got 20 guys counting on one shot, and when the puck's on your stick, you want to be able to perform. So luckily for us, we had some guys that were confident, and we were talking a little bit before the show about the overtime format and how we in 2014 the format was 5-on-5 through until there was a winner, and we all know what happened in 14. So the rule changed to where if you're tied at regulation, you go into a 5-on-5 overtime golden goal. That's an 8-minute period. All the overtimes are 8 minutes. And then if there's no winner after that first overtime, there's an ice cut, and then you get 4-on-4 overtimes. You'll get 4 consecutive overtimes, and if there's no winner after the 4 overtimes of 4-on-4, then you would go to a shootout. So the rules, somebody's going to win the game now, right? So this year, couple really interesting things happened. Obviously, the game was back and forth, many momentum swings. But at the end of regulation, I thought we had a little bit more momentum than they did. We were kind of riding some really good highs. And then we got into overtime, and it was very, very back and forth in overtime. We took a penalty really late in the first overtime, 5-on-5, so they went on the power play. And another interesting thing is we were both 3 for 3 on our power plays. So we were doing really good, and they were really – nobody was killing power plays in this game because, like I said, the talent, there's just so much scoring on the ice. So we had to kill off a really, really tough 5-on-4 in overtime. You know, they pop a goal there on their good power play, and that's curtains for us. But we did a good job killing it off, and then right as the time was expiring in the penalty, we got a break, and their kid had to haul our guy down, otherwise we would have had a breakaway. So he did a good job saving the goal at the time, but then that gave us a 40-second power play in that 5-on-5, which we didn't score in, but then that was able to carry over into the 4-on-4. So we got the intermission, and we got to go in there and draw up how we were going to play this 4-on-3. And then, you know, the rest was history.
That's huge, too, you know, when it drops down that 4-on-4 and it carried over.
Right. That really helped us because just 4-on-4 in general, there's a ton of ice. To go 4-on-3, I mean, it was like you had gaping holes to skate in.
Everywhere.
And, you know, our breakout totally changed. You usually try to pass it out, but there's just too much ice. You got to try to skate it and control the puck because one turnover, there's just too much ice.
Yeah, and then that specific goal. I mean, the game winner was it was almost a coast to coast straight through the middle.
Yeah,
I mean, and a heck of a shot to get it past the goalie, and that's that.
So another interesting fact is that was a sophomore, Greg Langermeyer, number 7.
Oh, wow.
He was one of the 2 freshmen that played with us in 2017. So he's a very strong player, but he's a sophomore returning. He's a defenseman. So, like I said, we got a chance to talk about how we wanted to do that 4-on-3. We actually had 2 breakouts. The first breakout failed because he tried to pass early, and then it went back down, and he literally skated all the way up. He split 2 of their better defensemen, just right through them, and then made a nice move on the goalie, and then the celebration began.
No, I can't imagine that celebration ever gets old.
No,
it can't.
So Coach O'Rourke's son said something on the bus about that one was a little too close, something this or that. I go, listen, buddy, we'll take them however we get them.
Yeah.
It never gets old.
Seriously. Well, how was the celebration afterwards? I mean, it had to be unbelievable.
It was unbelievable. Fun fact is Coach O'Rourke actually broke the glass that separates the bench from the crowd. He was up on the glass banging, trying to celebrate with some of the kids in the crowd, and the glass snapped on him. and he fell back with half the glass. So during our celebration, the Blue Jackets crew had to come and replace the glass.
Are they like,
the
we'll send you the bill, coach?
Yeah,
Just
right.
go celebrate.
I think they were happy to replace it. It was pretty
man.
intense, though.
That's
It
awesome.
was an intense celebration.
Well, he was okay, right?
Yeah, he was okay. It could have got a little messy, but he was okay.
I'm sure he's feeling no pain at that point.
Yeah, really.
And probably much later when you guys got back home as well.
Yeah.
So
Awesome.
this is 9 years in. 9 years in for you. I mean, how since your first couple of years to where you're at now. I mean, how have things changed for you, and how have things for not only for you as maybe as a coach, but also just hockey in general.
So, like I mentioned before, myself and the whole coaching staff, we're just trying to get better every year. When I started, I started as a JV coach. I got a chance to teach certain things to the younger group, and then I kind of matured up to the varsity. And I think Coach O'Rourke has, through the years, been giving me more and more responsibility, more tasks, and more. He's been kind of growing me as a coach. So, he's very good about placing the right people in the right positions. We all have roles and responsibilities as coaches, but I think just trying to get better as a coach every year. I think the players see that too, because we got a lot of returning players. So I get a sophomore. We do drills a certain way, and then we figure out a better way to do it. They can see that. If the players see that the coaches want to get better and the players want to get better, the whole program gets better. And I think that's why we've been able to get to the point where we're sustaining success rather than just having spurts of success.
We're talking with Bryan Schoenholz, St. Ignatius hockey here on Sports on Tap. And, you talked about your years of coaching there. I mean, it's developed, like you said, through the coaching. And a lot of players, I think, when you come to your program, you see the success there. So I think already that's a good start. They believe in, wow, they've won 3 years in a row. They've been there almost every year. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So the success is there, and I think kids obviously are buying into it.
Yep, it starts with the kids buying in. Pat has a vision of where he wants to take our program. He's executed that vision so far very well, and Pat is the last person that's going to be complacent. He's not going to stop getting the right players. He's not going to stop trying to go to the next level until he can't do it anymore. I think that's what makes it, and we all feed on that. Coaches feed on it, myself included. Players feed on it, and that's just why we keep trying to get better.
Well, it's interesting. I mean, he's been coach for a long time, and each year maybe he's delegating certain responsibilities to different coaches and gaining that trust. Mm-hmm. It's probably fun for you, to be more and more hands-on each year.
Absolutely.
Very cool.
All right, well, true friend of show.
Yeah, absolutely.
Coach Schoenholz, thanks again for coming on our show and talking about St. Ignatius hockey and everything that's been going on. Congratulations once again to you, your team, the coaches, the players, and best of luck to you as you guys are going into your off season. And we'll definitely talk next year.
All right, thank you guys so much for having me. I always have a blast with you guys.
Yeah, it's always fun.
Thank you. I really appreciate it.
Well, yeah, we'll have you on, some players. We'll preview the team next year. Look forward to it.
Perfect. Well, anytime you guys want, just let me know.
Sounds good.
Appreciate it.
All right. I want to thank Coach Schoenholz for coming on our show here today. We'll step away. We'll take a short break. When we come back, we'll talk a little NFL mock draft, Josh.
Oh, boy.
Yeah, this could either be ugly or I don't know what
if it's like our brackets, it'll be ugly.
We're live from Z's Cream and Bean. We're Sports on Tap. We'll be right back.